Results have begun to trickle in following yesterday's Parliamentary and Council by-elections in Zimbabwe. The country's main political parties, ZANU-PF, the MDC and the Citizens Coalition for Change, had in recent weeks been campaigning in areas where the polls were taking place. The ZANU-PF party currently controls Parliament with a two-thirds majority. For the latest, we are now joined on the line by SABC News correspondent Ephert Mosakiwa. Ephert has been monitoring the developments of these elections. A very good afternoon to you, Ephert.
Good afternoon, Nati. How are you?
Ephert, talk to us about what you're hearing so far with regards to vote counting and the results.
Well, what we are gathering is that in all the constituencies, the vote counting has been completed. We are just waiting for the final confirmation. But of those that have been declared, ZANU-PF has reclaimed 2 seats that previously were in the hands of the opposition, in Mutasa South, which is a rural constituency, as well as in Ephert, which is an urban constituency in the capital, Harare. Most of the triple C who were previously under the MDC Alliance retained their seats. And surprisingly, the MDC, which recalled most of these members of parliament, did not even get a single seat. So basically, it has been a two-horse race between the triple C led by Nelson Chamisa and ZANU-PF led by Emmerson Mnangagwa.
Have there been any waivers at all in the voting process and counting that you've heard of?
Sorry, come again?
Have there been any waivers in the voting process and counting?
Well, nothing really that sticks out during the voting was peaceful. Last night when we spoke to the Electoral Commission, said that it had not received any complaints from any of the contesting parties. So nothing really stands out except that now people are more focused with receiving the results. The few that are left, which already indicate that the triple C, as the new baby, as most people are calling it, has actually made some serious inroads, or has made significant gains since it did not have a single seat either in parliament or in the local authorities. So, but the political from the Electoral Commission, they have not received any complaint or any objections.
Now, we understand as things start to develop, we're seeing that, Douglas Mwanzora has recalled 16 councillors, and he, of course, from the MDC. Did you hear anything of this? What does this signal? Some suggesting it could signal another by-election in the cards in Zimbabwe?
Well, I did get that the report of Douglas Mwanzora recalling the councillors, but you might need to appreciate that the focus or the most of the attention really goes to Parliament, which is a legislative body. The local government, the attention, even if you check with the voter turnout, in areas where they were just voting for councillors, the turnout has been very, very, very low. People are not even bothered. So even if Douglas Mwanzora recalls councillors, when they eventually go to the by-election, people will not put much effort, will not put much energy into either voting or actually participating in those by-elections for councillors. For the MP, even the turnout as well was low because people mostly pay attention to the presidential or the general election that is normally held after every 5 years. So these by-elections normally come and there isn't much. So even if Douglas Mwanzora recalls those councillors that as reported, when we come to the by-election, because it's supposed to be held within 90 days, you find that people won't pay attention again for the reason that next year's election is now less than 12 months away. So really, it will not change anything regarding the political landscape in Zimbabwe.
All right, Ephert, as we quickly wrap up this conversation, just talk to me about what you have seen on the ground. I mean, have people actually come out to vote? We know that the CCC was concerned about the low turnout, mentioning that that was problematic for them, this time around. What were your observations in as far as just the mood on the ground in terms of, people going out in their numbers to cast their votes?
Well, I spent the day in the capital, Harare, yesterday, monitoring what was happening. I can give you a few of where the places that I actually attended. Where the area or the constituency that the CCC president, Nelson Chamisa, voted his constituent or his former constituent or his constituent where he actually votes. His candidate won that constituency, but the turnout in that constituency alone was below 30%. You have the vice president of the CCC again contesting in the capital Harare, in Harare East. The turnout there was again below 30%. You have St. Mary's, which is another hotly contested area within the capital. There are about 36% turnout. So it tells you that the numbers were very, very low, even if the CCC did win in those constituencies. But the turnout was significantly very low. You would expect that these constituencies normally would have a turnout of above 40 to about around 50% turnout. But this time around, those are the figures that they managed to get. Then in ZANU-PF strongholds, you have higher turnout because ZANU-PF has a way of making sure that its people do turn out and go and vote. So in their stronghold, even if you look at the numbers of the margins, where ZANU-PF is in control, the margins are higher because in those areas, in the rural areas, voter turnout is always higher. So I think there is need for more voter education, especially in the urban areas, to make sure that people do turn out and the voter turnout actually increases from these low numbers from 30% maybe to above 50%.
SABC News correspondent Ephert Mosakiwa there. Thank you so much for your time. Now, let's take this discussion forward. We are now joined via Zoom platform by the spokesperson for the CCC, Advocate Fadzayi Mahere. We also have Information and Publicity Secretary for MDC Alliance, witness Dube, and ZANU-PF's Director for Information and Publicity, Tafadzwa Mugwadi. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Perhaps let's start with you, Advocate. What is your comment and reaction, firstly, to the turnout during these Parliamentary and Council by-elections, and secondly, the counting and results thus far?
Now, as the Citizens Coalition for Change, we are extremely happy that the citizens have embraced the new. You'll be aware that this political party was formed or announced on the 24th of January 2002. So 2022. So barely 2 months to traverse the length and breadth of Zimbabwe, and everybody has the message now that we are one of the biggest political players in town. The by-election is also history. He did not manage to attain a single seat. Of course, the low voter turnout was to be expected, it being a by-election, but we had some record turnouts in a number of constituencies. For example, in Nangamvura, our candidate won over 10,000 votes. That speaks to, huge commitment on the part of the citizens and a super energized electorate. Now, coming to the actual counting, we have had huge problems with the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. The voters' roll itself was symbolic and not credible, and we raised queries with this prior to the election starting. A number of our voters came out to try and vote, and they saw their names were not on the voters' roll, especially in Epworth. But, throughout the country, we had this problem. We also had problems around the unilateral relocation of polling stations without any consultation or information and as far as notifying the citizens was concerned, which also impaired the voter turnout. Concerning the pre-election phase, we had huge problems of political violence. In Kwekwe Central, which was a ZANU-PF seat, which we ended up winning, it's in Mr. Mnangagwa, it's his homeland. There was huge political violence even when Mr. President Nelson Chamisa went there and we had our rally there. One of our supporters was murdered, a number injured after ZANU-PF thugs came and interrupted the rally. We also had political violence in Gokwe, where the police unleashed tear smoke and dogs on us. In Binga, a rural constituency, which we managed to win by over 10,000 votes, like I've indicated. Our rally was banned. Not only was it banned, Mr. Mnangagwa was allowed to campaign there. He gave the citizens, bicycles and all sorts of, vote buying techniques, and yet we still won. The state media was not fair. We also had issues with our polling agents being denied entry by the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. And so we're concerned with the electoral management body's commitment or lack of commitment to carry out a free and fair election as is required by Section 239 of the Constitution.
Advocate Mahere, unfortunately your sound does come and go at some point. So let's ask the very same question to ZANU-PF's Director of Information and Publicity, Mr. Tafadzwa Mugwadi. Sir, just your comment very quickly on and your reaction firstly to the turnaround as well as the counting and results thus far. How did your party do?
Thank you very much, my sister. I think just a small correction to my counterpart there. She got her facts very wrong. Kwekwe Central, that she claims has been won from ZANU-PF, was being held by the late NPF MP, Mr. Matambanazo, who died. That Mr. Matambanazo was not a ZANU-PF MP. He came from an opposition party called NPF. Before NPF came through Matambanazo, there was MDC, through Blessing Chebundo, who has since joined the ZANU-PF. So I just thought it was important to make that fact very straight. With regards to the voting that has taken place, we are very much buoyed, and this is a very strong, confident boost to ZANU-PF. Confident boost ahead of 2023 in the sense that you are pretty aware that this whole election was much about the opposition and not essentially about ZANU-PF. We have a thumping two-thirds majority we have in parliament. We do have it. It is unaffected. It is unoffended. Now we had an opportunity to fish from the opposition pond following their squabbles, which resulted in the massive recalls that we saw and some that we hear through SABC now that they've taken place with regards to local authorities. We are very happy because we have won two strong constituencies, which used to be opposition strongholds. Mutasa South constituency, which was being held by CCC, MDC's faction, Regai Tsunga. We have also won Epworth constituency in Harare. And you know that Harare has been a traditional hunting ground of the opposition. We have come in through the urban renewal agenda announced by President Emerson Mnangagwa, which seeks to correct the legacy of failure, the legacy of poor roads in Harare, the legacy of uncollected garbage, the legacy of dead water running from our pumps, the legacy of mismanagement and corruption at the hands of MDC councillors. Now, it's quite unfortunate that they would want to present themselves as a new organization. They didn't do primary elections to choose new candidates because they were recycling the old. It is a case of new wine in old bottles. There is nothing that has changed there. So, in short, we are very happy as ZANU-PF. Just to say that we were, however, disturbed by cases that we're hearing in Mauberin, that is in Harare West constituency, where their candidate was vicious, threatening, violence on election and polling officers. That is wrong, and it was a behavior aimed at undermining electoral processes and trying to put our election process in disrepute. It is behavior that we discourage. We don't encourage that as ZANU-PF. But overall, we are very, very much happy. Going into 2023, it is a clear statement from citizens, from the people of Zimbabwe, that they are ready to reject puppet organizations for the revolutionary party, ZANU-PF. You might also need to know that ZANU-PF has maintained and extended its control in its traditional bastions in the rural areas, where we have won and retained all the seats that were ours, both at local level and at House of Assembly level. We have added 2 more on House Assembly level. We have also added over 12 councils to the councils that we previously held, having won 3 more councils in Manicaland, having also won 2 in Harare, having won 12 out of 13 in Matabeleland North. It is a clear indication that indeed we are ready for elections. We are doing well. The new dispensation, the Second Republic, is indeed in the correct direction.
Mr. Witness Dube for the MDC Alliance, let me bring you into this conversation, but let me ask you this, over and above your thoughts about these elections. These elections have been seen to be a test run for general elections come next year. Given what we are seeing from these by-elections this year, as the MDC, talk to us about reports that state that Douglas Mwazora has recalled 16 more councillors. What does this signal for your party, and particularly how you did in this particular round?
Oh, well, thank you. Every election has its own dynamics. So I really would not easily agree to the fact that this is a test run, in the sense that what you saw in this election is exactly what you are going to see in a year's time from now. A lot would have changed by then. In fact, it's back to the drawing board for us. What you saw from our party was an institution that was deserted by almost all of its top leadership. You are talking of a presidential candidate in 2018. You are talking of the vice presidents and a lot of the party machinery in the information department and down to the provinces and to the grassroots. So really our fears were vindicated in some sense, because we feared such a scene of carnage on the political scene. But we did put a brave showing. We did try to salvage what we could under the circumstances. The situation was made worse by the many internal squabbles that happened even after the Supreme Court judgment, after we had settled with the new leader in President Monzora, and then we had the Vice President Coupe jumping over to the CCC camp. In fact, what the best way to interpret this is that you have got MDC as an institution remaining solid and intact, and you have a new offshoot from the MDC, which migrated, unfortunately, without the constitution of the MDC, without the policies of the MDC, without the values of the MDC. So it is the jury is still out there for the voter to see which institution is going to falter in not so long a time from here. And then to the question of the recalls that we have effected, there is a devolution clause in our constitution which introduced PR councillors. Those are the councillors that we have called. In other words, these are proportional representative councillors. These are not councillors to be elected. They are a creation of the number of votes that would have been cast for a party. So essentially they belong to the MDC, and these are people we are simply going to switch, and they are in the provinces that have got rural components in them. So they are not going to trigger any by-elections. I thought I should just make that clear. But as a party, yes, it was a rude awakening. It's back to the drawing board, and we will be giving our full thoughts in our presser tomorrow.
Mr. Dube, the party has done badly in these by-elections, as you say, and you say that it is a rude awakening. Some are suggesting perhaps it's time for you to close shop.
Definitely not. People who would say that will be very much misinformed about the Zimbabwean political scene. I mean, look at ZANU-PF. At one time, we had a majority in parliament. Remember, in 2008, MDC won an outright majority, and with the Speaker of Parliament, it was only through SADC's initiative through former President Thabo that they actually were in government. Otherwise, they should have been out. But they have since consolidated their support. It's because they consolidated their message. We have a message. Our message of hope is still intact. But what we need to communicate strongly to our voter is why we chose a less confrontational approach to the governance of the day than perhaps in our earlier years as a party. From 2008, the wisdom of the party informed us to take dialogue as a choice strategy. And this is what brought us the government of national unity, which brought us the new constitution, which really laid the groundwork for the kind of the democratic sphere that we have in Zimbabwe today. And shockingly, we are seeing, reminders of the yesteryears of Robert Mugabe. In this, we saw them in this by-election, the violence that was never there in the 2013 elections, that was never there in the 20 elections. But this is an environment that was won through negotiation. This is why we wanted to engage the government. We have adopted this new philosophy of rational disputation, but really it's something that we adopted in our 2006 Congress, maintained in the 2014 Congresses and all the substantive Congresses. So we only need time to communicate to the voter that, look, we have had big rallies, we have had show-boating politics, we have had flashy political statements here and there all along. But what really needs to be done is what you find in the MDC. ZANU is the old ZANU-PF that has failed to deliver. The new babies are promising but flattering to deceive in terms of implementation, because if you look at the people that have been elected, they are the same people whom we actually recalled on accusations of corruption, and it should not surprise them if after removing them and they are back,
Mr.
and
Mr. Dube, I'd like to bring in
Anti-Corruption Commission to investigate.
Mr. Dube, thank you for that. I'd like to bring in now the Citizens Coalition for Change very quickly. Advocate Mahere, I mean, you've heard what our two other panelists have had to say. Your party has obviously serious ambitions of being the main opposition party, even though you've just been established 2 months ago. Do you think you stand a chance of making a change come 2023?
Well, absolutely, yes. I don't think it's a question of us trying to become the main opposition. We certainly are, if the data coming out of this election is anything to go by, where we gained clear majorities in both the local governments and the parliamentary elections. It's a lie by Mr. Witness Dube, in fact, a desperate narrative that we're an offshoot of the MDC. We are a completely brand new party with a new vision, new philosophy, new colors, new constitution, new leadership. It's a complete falsehood to suggest that we came from them or we took anything from them. To the contrary, they stole all the party resources, they stole the building, they recalled and usurped the will of the people. It's their conduct that led to these recalls. So, they really have no leg to stand on. And as far as explaining the fact that Mr. Munzura got 0% of the vote yesterday, they actually should be shocked, worried, concerned, and they should actually apologize to the citizens for usurping the will of the people. Now, coming to Mr. Mugwadi from ZANU-PF, I think the citizens are very clear. What ZANU-PF tried to do with its proxy, Mr. Munzura, to try and, throw Mr. President Chamisa into the dustbin of political history. And instead, it's Mr. Munzura and his outfits that were destroyed. So that's a clear victory for the Triple C. We came in with nothing, and we've come out of this election with a whole lot. And for us, it's now a question of consolidating these gains, taking the lessons and marching towards the election of 2023, where we will continue with our focus of putting citizens at the center of all decision-making and our candidate selection and our policy formulation and our vision.
Advocate Mahere, I think that's where
we're going to put the people first.
I think we got your point. Thank you so much for that, ma'am. Let me just wrap up this conversation very quickly. So we've got less than a minute left. Let me wrap up with ZANU-PF. Whilst, the party has retained wards and seats, and you are obviously, just talking about how well you did in this particular election. However, you are slowly starting to be seen as a rural party, given just where you have done well in this particular elections. Are you hoping to change this, particularly looking at 2023 when we go into the general elections?
Oh, thank you very much for that. Let me just say, like I said, we have won 2 urban constituencies. On top of that, we have won local council seats in urban constituencies. Those were lost in 2018. It is a very big signal that the party is coming into the urban areas. We are coming into the urban areas not empty-handed, but with a strategy of modernizing cities under the urban renewal agenda by the President, Comrade Idim Nangaba, and the Second Republic. So we are very much on course. If we were a rural party alone, we would not have made these significant inroads in opposition strongholds. We have done so, it is because we have a strong message that resonates with people. Just to clear the air, I've advised the opposition several times, they must own their mess. We don't meddle into their politics. When they differ, when they divide, when they split, when they squabble, they apportion blame to ZANU-PF. When they unite, they don't tell us how those that they called ZANU-PF yesterday have ceased to become ZANU-PF. Their vice presidents, the so-called vice president of CCC today, eloped and split from the original MDC. I'm talking about Tendai, I'm talking about Roshman, I'm talking about Job Scala himself.
Mugwadi, I'm afraid your time is up. Your 1 minute is up. Thank you so much for your time, sir, on the channel. I'd also like to thank CCC's advocate Fadzayi Mahere, as well as the MDC Alliance's witness Dube, and of course ZANU-PF's Director for Information and Publicity, Tafadzwa Mugwadi. They were our panel discussing the elections in Zimbabwe. Well, this is where